to say I felt a little bit odd when the Harvard MBA was announced, given Shiva's comments earlier about Harvard. But I didn't get in by the affirmative action, and I didn't have a father or mother that went there, but anyway. I will tell you a little bit about myself, and I would love to just also talk a little bit about community organizing and just the importance of community engagement. So I'm running for Massachusetts State Senate, and in the Middlesex Worcester district. I live in Acton, Massachusetts. The district is about 14 different communities, from Acton all the way down to Southborough. Includes Marlborough, Ayr, Shirley, a whole bunch of different communities. And it's been a great experience. I've actually been on the campaign trail for almost a year now, and we're almost there. November 6th is the big election day. And I hear you, where's Ellen? That was great just to hear her experience about being a candidate as well. So I spent 8 years in the town of Acton in town government. I have an MBA, like was said, from Harvard Business School, but when I had my children, I really wanted to be able to stay home with them, at least while they were little. And so, but I still wanted to be able to sort of use my skills, and I was really passionate about just bettering the community and wanting to make it a better place and to be involved and to know the issues and to contribute. So I got involved. I was on the planning board for 4 years in Acton. I led the master planning process. That was a 3-year process. And then I was on the finance committee, and I chaired that committee as well. And I love being involved. One of the things that I prioritized when I was in all of my different roles in Acton was getting as much community involvement and participation as we could possibly get. That was, to me, what was always the most important. So when we did the master planning, I didn't want it to be a situation where you just sort of you held a meeting, maybe the same 20 people that sort of always show up for those types of meetings would come, and that was the only input we would get. I didn't want that to happen, so we very proactively reached out to so many different groups of folks in town. We actually have a large Chinese American population in Acton. We have a large Indian American population. We have lots of different ethnicities and nationalities represented in Acton. So it's very proactive in reaching out to get their input, reaching out to school parents, reaching out to seniors to get their input, so that there can be true ownership over that plan. And in fact, there is. And it passed overwhelmingly, and it still is used today. And that was about 5 years ago. So I'm really passionate about this idea of how do you sort of bring people together around common ground. And by the way, this actually speaks to a problem that we all know exists in our country today, which is this hyper-partisanship and hyper-divisiveness that we have going on in our country right now. What you do by bringing lots of different people and voices into the conversation is you allow people to be heard and to have ownership and to feel like they can make a difference in what they're doing. And so that's why I took that approach. Now, it's interesting in running a campaign, you have to rely on a lot of volunteers. And I've also spent time in the nonprofit sector, lots of volunteers there. So when you're thinking about community organizing, how do you think about it? How do you motivate people? How do you get people to be effective volunteers, and what makes them want to come? So when I think about this, there's a few different things that I think have to happen. One is they have to be motivated by a cause, right? So in my case, the cause is to get me elected, but more broadly, it's not just about me, it's about bringing conservative values to the Massachusetts State Senate. It's about bringing an approach that's all about inclusiveness instead of divisiveness. So you have to get people motivated by the cause. You also have to make them feel like what they're doing is going to make a difference. Now, this is actually something I thought a lot about, and not just in the context of volunteering, in the context of anything. If you think about it, if you don't think what you will do is going to make a difference, why would you ever get involved? So I actually talk a lot about this in terms of my support for more local control on the campaign stuff. I talk about this because if you as a parent, for instance, know that if you go to your local school committee and they're just going to say, well, you know what, we can't really help you there because it's all controlled by the state, or it's all controlled at the federal level. Or you go to your local city council or your board of selectmen and they say, you know what, sorry, we can't really do anything because you know what, it's all controlled by the state. What's going to happen to you as a parent or to you as a citizen? You're going to disengage. You're not going to be willing to put forth the effort to do anything. So the idea, so I talked about specifically on my campaign, more local control engenders more citizen participation, right? But that idea, that principle is also important when you're talking about community organizing. People have to feel like what they were going to do is actually going to make a difference in the broad sense, okay? Not just motivated by a cause, but what they are going to do is going to make a difference. The third thing is they have to feel like what they are specifically doing is of value, right? They have to see what the value is. One of the worst things that happens to me as a volunteer, and I volunteer for all sorts of things, is to go somewhere, show up, and what I'm doing is clearly not valuable. And I know it's not valuable. And that's very frustrating because everyone is busy and nobody wants to waste time. They also, people need to feel like they are valued. They need to be thanked. Again, people are busy. You know, I've been one of the most amazing things about running for office, I have to say, and I wonder if Ellen has felt this as well, is just the number of people that have helped. It's very, very gratifying and touching to me, and I can't thank them enough, because I know people are busy. I'm busy. It's hard to take time away to help somebody or to help a cause or to volunteer. So thanking them is incredibly important. People need to feel like their work is valuable and it's valued. And you know, finally, this is sort of a nuts and bolts thing, but people need to be given a structured set of tasks. You know, you can't just sort of say, well, yeah, we'd love to have your help, and then not be able to give them a specific thing that they can do. And so all of those things, I think, are effective in campaigns. They're effective in any kind of community organization that you're doing. They're effective in nonprofit organizations that follow, that use volunteers, and just getting things done. And it helps all, if you are effective at getting together a group and mobilizing them for a cause, then you know, you have a whole set of new people that are now engaged in a process. And that, I think, is what's ultimately the most important thing, is getting all these people that are now engaged in a process. And I go back to something that Ellen said earlier, which is this, that, you know, even if you lose as a candidate, for instance, you now have a whole set of people that have become engaged, that have become aware of issues, that are now know a little bit more about what they think about maybe an issue. And that, to me, is what's important. I'll just end by sharing a very interesting little conversation I just had this morning, actually, with a woman who lives, or is from Belgium. She and her husband came over here for a job, and they've lived in the US for 12 years. And as it turns out, her daughter plays on my daughter's soccer team. So I was just there for a snippet in between multiple other campaigning things today, and I chatted with her a little bit. And she said, you know, what's interesting, we were talking about my candidacy. She said, in Europe, in Belgium, all the candidates are funded by public monies. And because of that, there is not really a lot of participation. There's no grassroots into campaigns, which is a really interesting concept, because obviously it's not just all about fundraising, you have to get people to vote. But she said the politicians there are very distant from the public. You don't see them out trying to sort of amongst the people. I thought that was fascinating. She said, and because at a higher level, because so much is given to the citizens by the sort of quasi-socialist state that most of the Western European countries embrace as an economic system, people don't really give money away to charity. They don't really feel like they have to take care of other people because they just sort of figure the government's doing it all, right? And that is the exact opposite of what I was just talking about. That disempowers people instead of empowering them. When there's more local control, when there's more individual responsibility, people are empowered. And that's what I think, conservatism really stands for. And I'm a huge advocate for that. So I'm thrilled to be here. It's great to hear so many of the different speakers and hear about the great things that the Chinese-American Alliance is doing. And I'm just incredibly impressed with this organization. I've had a lot of folks from with Chinese heritage helping me on my campaign, and it's been really, really awesome to understand more about the Chinese community. So thank you.